Our next step is we're going to change out our tooling and come out here and dress off this flange surface. I've got my little dial indicator set up here, and I'm going to bring it around here, and I'm going to pick up one of the flanges where the bolt holes go, and I'll just kind of tweak this up here to a number. Okay, so we're roughly about 90 on that, and I'm going to gently pick that up. I'm going to rotate it around here to pick up another bolt hole, and that's still about 90. And now you'll see I'm about 94, and I'll pick up another spot here, and now I'm 98, and there I'm almost 99, 99, and I'm back to about where I started. Okay, so I've got 10 thousandths warp, or the flange surface isn't square with what I've got set up on the shaft. I'm going to come out here and I'm going to face off this flange surface and make it square and true. If I didn't do that and just line board this out, you can imagine that if it was a perfect world and it had no run out and this was 10 off, when I mount the drive plate on top of it, it's going to kick off even further. So this unit is going to rotate around like this. So I've just touched off the part, and we know that it's about 10 or so out around. So I'm going to tweak this in here. I'm going to make kind of easy cuts. And what I'm looking for I'll just highlight that a little bit. What I'm looking for is, once I've cleaned up where I don't have any more of my paint marks on it, and you can tell that it's making a continuous cut all around. So we're set up to where we're going to cut off our flange surface, and there's two surfaces that we're going to deal with. One is the flange, the bolting surface, and then on the early drums there's a relief back here cut into it that the drive plate, because it has a flange surface and a lip that drops down over that. And so whatever we remove off of this flange surface, I'll reset up the tool, and I'm going to catch this shoulder that's cut in it. So if I take 10 or 15 off of here, I'm going to make sure that I take 10 or 15 off of that relief for the companion flange of the brake drum, or the drive plate, to slip over it. So, and like I said, I make a pass up here. I don't want to make too big of an aggressive cut. I've already turned it in 2/1000 plus a little bit. Just make a few passes here and get this thing squared up. And you can hear it's hitting the high spot. Move in a little bit here, another couple of thousandths, and I'll make another pass. Then taking off some of our marks, okay, cleaning it up. So these ones that I haven't hit yet, they're still low, so it gives you an idea of what you're dealing with here, okay. Alright, so we're going to take off another couple. And this gets us close to about that 10 that we kind of picked up rudely crude. Probably got a little booger here from the keyway or something like that for holding that clutch basket. So we're going to take care to stay off the bearing surfaces. Let's just see if we can knock off any. Still have a little high spot on it. Alright, hand me our magnetic base, just for giggles and wiggles. This is kind of redundant to what we did, but I hope I can show you something here. Alright, so if I brought this down here and locked it in place, and I spin that drum around, I've got about 1/1000th run out in it. They're just wiggles. Just wiggles. So at least the bearing's cut concentric to the shaft. Okay, and then you can get anal here, and we can manipulate your tool the right way. All right, there we go. I think, yeah. And so if I get that good and locked down, and I just kind of check around here, we're 30, 28, 28, 28, 29, 28, 29, 28 rather, sorry, 28. So it's sitting on our main shaft, and we're pretty well, we're concentric with the shaft, and this is not all out of whack like what it was before. It's within 1/2 hour or so probably of it. This isn't the best way to try to read it because you can kind of push things around, but so I'm happy with that. I'll mix up some time saver here after we get ready to finish it and coat up the shaft and coat up the bearings and spin it around. That'll just kind of take any of the little tooling marks off and smooth it out, and it'll still give us a couple of 1/1000th clearance in there. Okay, so our next step is to do the drive plate. Okay, so we've selected a drive plate, and when looking at a drive plate, things you want to make sure is that the rivets are all anchored in, they aren't loose. And by the way, I haven't had much success if the rivets are loose trying to reset them and tighten them down. I've had the opportunity to go back into some engines that was done and they were just loose. So I think if you got loose rivet or two, just buy another set of rivets and re-rivet the thing. Smacking them, center punching them, a lot of different techniques. It probably works sometimes, and then sometimes it don't. So it's a long ways inside the engine, so make sure that you got good tight rivets. We don't have any cracks. And the other important thing is that we want to pay attention to this surface. This is where the fourth main rides. The standard Ford one was a Babbitt. But anyhow, so we're going to set up here to do this. This is the old clutch collar. We just whacked off part of it. Got a set screw in it. And we're just going to drop that down on that just to hold them fingers. You'd hate to have them flip out at you and catch part of the lathe and start throwing chunks all over the place. But we're going to center that. And like I said, this is another critical point. So you'd like to pick one out that is round, ideally. So if I measure there, I'm 559.05, a number that I can't even speak about. And this one's 559, so there's a little bit of difference in it. And if I turn it 90 and read again, I'm 558.750. Number you can say, but doesn't mean anything. That's 589.95. So we got a little bit of out around, very slight, and a little bit of taper. I wouldn't worry about machining that down. Now, if you had one and it was a good drive plate, there's people that have turned these down and slipped collars over them. There's people that have just turned these down to a size and then pour the fourth main to their desired tolerance and fit. That's all possible and all doable. Drive plates are pretty common, and it's not hard to come up with a good drive plate. So I'm going to go through the process of centering this. Again, I'm going to use my steady rest and start turning this thing in about a half a turn at a whack and get a bite on it, and then we'll start fighting with it. And it's close. And I have found that if I have a good cone center, then I can run it up in here. You don't want to grab hold of a whole lot of this shaft back here in the forejaw, because you've got to tap and peck around on the front here to get it into alignment. So if I pull it through here, see, I've got just a wiggle jiggle. I want to make this just round, Bill. You could bore it to size, but I built out of a reamer, and it's an inexpensive reamer that you can buy, and put a tube on it, and then turned it down to the finished size of our brake bearings. And I use it after I've got this all centered up to the brake drum. And the last thing I do is I run that reamer up in there and just clean up that bushing. There's not a whole lot of material here left. There's a few thousandths, and that's about it. That would almost slide onto the main shaft. But so we're going to bore out that bearing, and then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to clean up this flange, because we're going to see that flange, and we can just do that right now if you want. Centered up. We got our drive plate as square as we can. Got it supported with our steady rest. We've installed our different boring bar because it's a smaller OD. We're going to cut this bearing, this bushing out to 997. The main shafts are 935. And so our target is 937. And a little more open doesn't hurt us. A lot of people think a little looser is a little better. But so our target's 937-ish is where we want to end up at. I've got the tool set up here to where I'm turning it at 325 RPM. I'm going to make very gradual cuts at this. There isn't a whole lot of material to move, and I can just barely hear it catching right now. I'll make a pass at it, then I'm going to increase it 1/1000ths. And my goal here is hopefully I can get it to 937 and it cut all the way around. Okay, it says we're starting it. Okay, so it shifted around a little bit. It says we're taking it out at 4 from where we touched off. Still's got a little skip in it. It's making a pretty nice cut. There's no vibration. This is what I was telling you about. The bearing doesn't push in straight or square. We've cleaned up all the way around the front edge, about 1/4 of an inch in there. But if you look further back in here, about 3/8 of an inch, it isn't clean. So the bearing's cocked in there. That's why it's critical to line bore it in order to get it straight and parallel with the sleeve, rather than just running a hone in it, or just grabbing a reamer and just reaming it. All right. Looks like it's staying at 5. Now it's making a good cut at the front, but it's skipping a little bit further in. See, now it's skipping even more. So we may not get this bearing completely clean, square with the world, because there's just not enough material there to work with. Nothing moved around, but we're going to take a measurement here, because we got to be getting close. So now we're cleaned up more like 3/8, getting close to 1/2. But if you look back up in this bearing, there's an area from about this point to about here, all the way back, that isn't clean. I think I'm at 935. And we want to finish at 937. So I've got a couple of more thou that I can take out. So I'm going to run this up and give us another 1/1000ths cut, which should take us to 2. Okay? Right? Which should remove 2 thou. That's another 1/1000ths out. And so we're going to make another pass here. It's a pretty nice looking finish on the bearing. Well, according to that, I'm at 937, Bill. So what was I on my other pass? 936? 935?
So I think you're at 36.
Yeah, but I cut it a little bit more than... So in total, from the time we touched off the part, we only had 7 thousandths of material to work with, and it's still not cleaned up all the way through the bushing. $937 and some numbers that we could talk about, but we could never get to. About 937.6 is what it says. So we should have a decent fit there, and we do. We got us a nice cut. So we got that part of it done. I'm happy with it. We're going to change over our tooling and cut this surface of the flange out. Whatever we take off of there, we're going to take the same off the lip that goes over the brake drum. So we're going to have to reverse our tool around here, Bill, so we're going to be busy for a little while. So we've changed our tooling out, and we're going to cut this flange surface off that I've took a yellow paint stick and just kind of marked it up. It's not necessary, but it'll just kind of show up how irregular this thing is. Not true. And whatever I take off of here, I'm going to just use our little feed here. And if I take off 10, I'm going to make sure I take 10 off this little flange that comes over. You don't want the brake drum, you don't want it to come in contact with the brake drum and then pull down this plate, because it'll just warp everything. So we're going to make several passes, and I've locked down my table. Oh, you can see we got just a little bit of yellow left. We're going to take off another thou. Yep, it's gone, it's clean. So this time I'm going to bring it out just a little further than what I had and kind of catch the interior lip of that flange a little bit more. Just kind of sneak out on it. I don't want to grab it too awful hard, but I want to make sure that it's out of my way. Okay, so we whacked 4 thousandths off of that. I'm going to come out here and I'm going to trim off my flange. Like I said, I'd do the same amount. Okay, so there's my 4. So we finished dressing up the flange, and just a quick down dirty check. You can hold the brake drum up on there, and you have a little bit of a gap here. In other words, the flange isn't making contact with the brake drum. The 2 companion flanges are making contact, and no interference with that little bit of lip that sticks out over the side. So we're ready to go see if we accomplish something here. All right.